A professional hitman puts a $2 million hit on his head after being diagnosed with neurodegenerative brain disorder to cash in the insurance money. However, he soon discovers it was a false diagnosis.
You're not going to die. In fact, there's nothing on earth to stop you from leading a long and healthy life.
But it's too late.
Calling from heaven or hell.
I'm canceling the contract.
His wishes are met.
Yeah, I'm the client, and I'm telling you to cancel.
Now he has to face hundreds of colleagues going John Wick style on him. The film opens outside a lavish theater in Budapest, where our lead, Joe, is assigned to assassinate his target. Unfortunately, he gets spotted by one of the target's bodyguards, so he kills all the bodyguards and reaches his target to complete his mission. The target offers Joe to triple the amount of money his clients are paying to kill him in exchange for sparing his life.
Я заплачу втрое больше. У этой игры другие правила.
But Joe shoots him anyway, indicating money isn't his top priority. That's when he gazes upon a beautiful girl named Maize performing on the stage. When he walks away from there, he gets a headache so bad that it blurs his vision for a while. On the other hand, the rich snob's last bodyguard finds his employer dead, so he panics and ends up shooting the theater's security. One of the theater security comes after him with his gun, so the bodyguard ends up jumping off the balcony and lands right on the stage, causing everyone to panic and start running away. Maize falls on the ground during running. Luckily, Joe comes to the rescue. He puts her phone in his pocket and lifts Maize up to take her outside. While she tries to thank him, Joe's headache strikes once again. Maize turns her back on Joe in order to grab a bottle of water for him, but when she looks back, she finds him gone. Now, we see Joe driving as fast as he can to get home, where he disables the security in front of the door, revealing the kinds of threats he faces in his business. He takes a painkiller and washes it down with alcohol before crashing his couch. The next morning, he goes to his doctor for a brain scan. The doctor also collects his blood sample, revealing the scans aren't picking up his issue. Up next, Joe heads straight to his handler as well as a good friend, Zvi, who shows concern for Joe upon consulting a doctor for his headaches. When it comes to discussing business, Zvi gives him the good news that he's clean since the cops have taken the rich snob's last standing bodyguard as their prime suspect in the recent case. Hence, Joe is clean. On the contrary, Joe is burdened with the guilt of killing people for a living. Zvi tells him to leave the judgment to God since he's only wiping the scum off this planet. Up next, Joe goes to a dance rehearsal class, where he personally hands Maize her phone and returns. But before leaving, Maize insists on giving him her number, hinting that she likes him. She writes it on a piece of paper, which Joe throws on his way out, but regrets it soon, and takes out the crumbled paper from the trash can. He goes home and texts Maize on her number to fix the dinner date. During their date, Maize talks about her vision of opening her own dance theater, whereas Joe lies about being a traveler who's soon to be retired. With this date as a first step, the two step into a new venture as lovers and show great compatibility and take great liking in one another. While on the other hand, Joe continues his hitman gigs and beats bad guys for a living. One day, he meets Zvi and asks him to attend his birthday celebration as a close relative and meet Maize. Zvi shows up at the celebration and does a great job mingling with Maize and her friends. The next day, Joe visits the doctor, who reveals the test results and diagnoses Joe with Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, a neurodegenerative disorder that can lead to problems bigger than headaches, such as blindness and diminishing of his mind. When Joe asks the doctor if he's sure on tests, the doctor confirms his diagnosis by saying he had his blood sample tested in 3 different labs, and all showed the same result. When the doctor reveals he doesn't have much longer to live, Joe returns to his place in despair and looks up the symptoms online in order to find any solution to his problems. When the internet is of no help, he tries to shoot himself, but has a hard time pulling the trigger since Maize has become a significant part of his life for whom he deeply cares. His mind works in mysterious ways, and he ends up packing all his tangible assets like cash and gold bars in a bag and throwing it down the river. He takes the remaining amount to Zvi and tells him everything about his condition, after which he offers $2 million in cash and gold to assassinate him and liquidate the rest of his life earnings so that they can be passed on to Maize through life insurance. Zvi is startled upon this epiphany and refuses to comply with Joe, so he ends up visiting another handler named Mariana. Through their conversation, we find out that they have bad blood between them because Joe assassinated her father back in the day. Joe allows her to take revenge by assassinating him for $2 million, so she happily accepts the offer and cherry-picks a contract killer named Lovedoll for the job, who immediately declines the offer. Hence, Mariana offers the Goyang gang to finish the job, who are currently jamming in a karaoke bar while brutally obliterating their target. Simultaneously, Mariana also hires 2 Hungarian brothers as a backup plan to make sure Joe dies. Up next, Joe meets Maize outside an hour before midnight. There, Mariana's personal guard secretly takes pictures of the two and eavesdrop on them. Joe breaks things off with Maize in order for her to exclude her from the mess he's about to make. Maize gets heartbroken and leaves before placing a kiss on Joe's lips to remember her by. Joe can't stand to see Maize this upset, so he goes home and gets drunk. He ends up telling his truth to Maize on voice notes, who's now in a bar. Simultaneously, Joe's doctor messages Joe about the terrible mix-up he did with the test reports, so Joe calls him, only to find out that the punk of a doctor mixed his reports and misdiagnosed Joe. In reality, his reports were negative for any disease or disorder. Sadly, it's too late because the Goyang gang has already stepped foot in Budapest. At midnight, they breach his home, which Joe senses and prepares to fight them. The gang finally comes to the main lounge to finish the job, but Joe fights back now that he has a whole life to spend with Maize. He kills all of them one by one, each with a unique and more gruesome way. He ends up blasting the gang's chick, who falls out of the windows and lands on a car. Joe marches outside and calls Mariana to call off their contract since the circumstances have changed, but this only ends up making her mad. Now, Joe stops inside a storage inventory to call Maize and tell her to run out of town. There, he's welcomed by the Hungarian brothers, who apologize and ask Joe not to take personal offense. He verbally tries to stop them, but they keep pulling stunts and hurting Joe, so he ends up using a bat to throw one of the brothers off his bikes, whom he kills by crushing his helmeted head with his bare foot. The other brother comes at him, but he kicks his bike, causing him to fly off and fall into the drums. He then steals his bike and speeds away. On the other hand, Mariana doubles the bounty to attract more assassins. When Lovedoll sees the price going up,
Daddy's gotta go to work.
The party's over?
he decides to take the job. 2 Scottish brothers named Angus and Rory also decide to accept the offer after having some drinks and a reasonable debate. 2 strippers, Ginny and Tanya, also see the offer after assassinating their targets and accept it. In the end, a dancing killer named Boutella also finds the offer tempting enough to hop on the assassination attempt. Back in Budapest, Maize listens to the voice notes and leaves the club. Joe also visits Zvi one last time and asks him to transfer some of his money to Maize for her rendezvous and lend him some weapons. Instead, Zvi tends to his wounds and gets his wife to give him a massage so good that it cures his headaches. Now,
Oh my God.
Zvi loads a bag with weapons and bids Joe farewell. Meanwhile, Lovedoll arrives in Budapest and gets picked up by Mariana's retarded cousin, whom she wants to train and bring along in her business. Mariana updates them on Maize and sends her picture to them. When they come to pay Maize a visit, she tries to flee and even watches her balance going up through the roof. Outside, she kicks the retarded cousin, but Lovedoll renders her unconscious by hitting her and kidnaps her. On the other hand, Joe drives to an abandoned mansion as bait to gather all of the hitmen so he can fight them under one roof. Mariana tracks him and sends his location to the killers. While Lovedoll and the cousin drive Maize towards the mansion, the Scottish brothers show up first to fight Joe. He kills one of them right away.
My brother you just killed?
You're gonna pay for that!
And as he's dealing with the other one, the strippers show up with their guns. He gets rid of them by blasting them.
Un segundo.
The dancing killer takes place next, who also dies at the hands of Joe. In the end, Lovedoll plays the wild card by mentioning Maize, who's in his captivation. Over the phone, he asks Joe to come to a new location. To make things worse, Mariana sends her bodyguard, Max, and a killer squad to take Joe down. Meanwhile, Maize convinces the dumb cousin that her foot is aching and gets out of the van to spread her legs, but instead hits him in the head with a wooden branch and runs away. Back in the mansion, Joe kills 2 of the squad members and sneaks out to reach the location, where Lovedoll is waiting for him. As Lovedoll does the classic villainous talk, Maize runs him over with her stolen car and gives Joe a ride. As they drive away, Lovedoll gets back on his feet and becomes disappointed to see Max and his squad walking out. Realizing Mariana doesn't find him powerful enough to do the job alone, so he demands to triple the bounty if they want him. Meanwhile, Maize demands an explanation, so Joe comes clean and reveals that he's an assassin who's gotten into a big misunderstanding because of his doctor. He also confesses to leaving the dirty work for her, But Maize reveals that she's pregnant and claims that she doesn't want to raise a baby with a killer. Simultaneously, she faints because she was shot in the shoulder by Max during her escape. While Joe helps Maize get out of the car, Lovedoll ditches the dumb cousin and makes his way to end the job. Joe takes the injured Maize to church to seek shelter. The bishop agrees to keep them there. He listens to Joe's confessions and helps him repent of his sins. Once Maize gains consciousness, Joe asks the bishop to wed them on the spot, which makes Maize happier than ever. Sadly, Lovedoll ruins the ceremony by shooting at them. The priest gets shot, but Max and his squad intervene to call off the deal with Lovedoll. They get into a fight, during which Lovedoll gets buried under a heavy structure. Joe aims his gun at Max, but he runs out of ammo. Fortunately, Maize gets hold of a gun from somewhere and roasts Max with it. On the other hand, Mariana fears for her life and decides to run away, but Zvi pays her a visit to remind her she's broken the code of the contract killer's organization by intervening and sending her personal squad to kill Joe, for which he shoots her. The film ends with Joe and Maize celebrating their marriage ceremony among their friends and leaving for their honeymoon.